Britons are one of the most popular civilizations out in Age of Empires, on Ariba and Arena alike, so on open and closed maps. They have a clear identity, iconic units, and with their bonuses are suitable for beginners to pros alike. Still, there are some catches about Briton strategy that separate good or great Briton players from intermediate ones. In this video you're going to understand what you should possibly open with as Britons, and especially what composition you should aim facing different enemy compositions. This will make your decision making better and more on point, and thus you're going to ameliorate your game. I'm Baradin, 1400 ELO Age of Empires 2 player, and I'm streaming every Tuesday and Thursday 17 GMT on twitch.tv/Baradin_AoE, link in the description also below. Come over there if you have any questions, want to have a good time and want to see a relatable but interesting game level in the top 10% of Age of Empires players with still big mistakes to learn from. Backseat gaming is explicitly allowed. Let's go. Some days ago, the godfather of Age of Empires statistics, Spirit of the Law, published an updated version of a Civ Overview of the Britons. He also covers 1 or 2 points that I will not cover, so I linked that video for you in the description as well. What I will cover more though is the question, how do you actually play them? After we have taken a shortened overview over the civilizations, techs and their bonuses, we're going to determine how through the ages your game should usually unfold. And afterwards we're looking to units and their possible counters by Britons, as well as certain unit compositions that Britons tend to struggle against. From that you should also be able to determine, if you play against Britons, what you should do to finally win, also against the long-ranging tea drinkers. Let's go. Let's come to the Civ Overview first. The Britons have a 25% shepherding bonus, which accounts for all herdable animals, and you can stay with 5 on sheeps and be fine for the villager production. That makes it possible to go earlier on wood and thus be in a position to get your wood in faster, which makes it easier as well for you to get some walls up without damaging your economy as heavily. The biggest takeaway here is use 5 instead of 6 villagers in Dark Age in the beginning, or get some more food from it and eat faster through your sheeps. Beware though, if you use 6 in the beginning, you might be through your initial 4 sheeps before going for the first boar, and might have to adapt with your build order a bit, so to send the vill to boar after the first 3 to wood and add the 4th one after that, for example. I clearly recommend for the beginning 5 to sheep is the better way. The second bonus is the town centers that cost less wood in Castle Age. You basically get 2 TCs in the wood price for 1. You still need 100 stone per TC though. So the benefit of that is basically that next to the TCs, for example on maps like Arena, or if you should opt for a fast castle build order, you still have enough wood to have a range producing crossbows while actually going for a free TC build order, which is pretty sweet when you're Britons. The last 2 bonuses are regarding the archers. First, and I overlooked that actually quite a while, is the archery range is producing 20% faster. That is the case for all the team, which makes them a nice team civilization as well. It means though that for 2 archery range production in Feudal Age, you also need 20% more resources, which means at least 9 on gold, for example. Just keep that in mind if you go full Feudal archers. In Castle Age and Imperial Age, the foot archers, including the Longbow men, get +1 range per age, totaling up to +2, which is probably the most known bonus of the Britons. As I said, if you want further info on that, I'll link the Spirit of the Law video in the description. A quick word concerning the archer bonus. We tested it quite a bit, and it turns out that obviously in Feudal Age there is no bonus, so it doesn't matter, and it comes down to your archer micro, which you should train anyway when you're planning to play Britons quite a bit. In Castle Age, the bonus is occasionally hard to use, as without ballistics, the further the enemy is away, the harder it is to hit him, especially if he is moving towards you to close the range that he is lacking. To make use of the bigger range, you want to patrol constantly backwards, but to really make use of it, ballistics is required. Ballistics is the most important tech as Britons when it comes to archer battles. Of course, the biggest difference is with the Arbalest and German tech researched as well as the ballistics. Let's take a quick walk through the tech tree as well. We do that a bit in staccato mode. Also, obviously the rangers are the top tier production with the missing thumbering, though for the archers they have one of the top Arbalest lines. Skirmishes are normal with an option to have +1 range, but only 90% hit rate due to no thumbring. Cavalry archers are not useful, and hand cannoneers are missing. The barracks are good, but standard, with a fully upgraded champion and halberdiers without special help. The stable is lacking, no paladin, no hussar, and no camels or elephants is not great, as well as the missing bloodlines. Blacksmith-wise, they get full upgrades though, which can make the cavalry viable in certain scenarios. Sometimes overlooked is the nearly full available tech tree at the docks. Despite of the lead cannon galleon, every tech is there. With the yeoman upgrade, the Britons also get surprisingly good towers, which are not the best, not comparable to Japanese for example, but can have a positive influence on their water presence and particularly getting water back or controlling choke points. Defensively, despite of treadmill crane and the bomber tower, everything is there. The blacksmith is full with upgrades. The monksmiths redemption heresy, so they can neither defend against converting of buildings or units, nor can they actually convert siege and enemy buildings themselves. They also miss the atonement, so converting of enemy monks is also out of the tech tree. And the siege workshop relies heavily on the trebuchets with the warwolf tech, making them 100% accurate and giving them splash damage. The bombard cannon is missing, as well as the siege onager and the siege ram. Economically, they are missing only the crop rotation and stone shaft mining, which isn't a huge deal, just means they run out a bit faster of wood, which can be a problem only in post-Imperial Age, where wood can run scarce on maps like Arabia. So, as we have looked at the tech tree, let's do first a strategy walk through the ages that Britons are going for, before we talk about what units they encounter and how they would react, as well as the unit compositions, and finally how to beat that long-ranging tea drinkers. The going through the ages is obviously a question of making decisions, and it is impossible to cover every single possible scenario and how to react in every possible scenario. In the end, what you have to go for to make your decisions making on point is play and play and play and get the experience in that you need. After losing, watch the replay and ask yourself and maybe a buddy of yours what could have been done better, or come back to this video and see whether you find suggestions here. You start by putting 5 on sheep and afterwards 4 on wood. Then you bring the first boar in, and from then it's pretty much a normal Dark Age as you know and love it. I recommend sending the 11th villager on the last sheep, so that you in the end up with 7 on boar, and afterwards continue in Dark Age as you know it, with building houses, mills, going on berries, and so on and so forth. The real question and decision that you have to make in Dark Age is 2 things. First, do I go for a drush or not? And second, if you go for a drush, there are 2 possible ways to do so. You build the barracks and the militia even before the mill, or the other way around. As the idea of a drush is to bring disarray into your enemy's economy and maybe even snack a villager, there has been a growing tendency in the professional Age of Empires scene to make a drush even earlier. The advantage is quite obvious, and you even have a good chance of your enemy not having loom at the point your militia arrives. Care for being housed though. I recommend using the villager, the 12th villager that is, so at 13 population, where you start to build your house before going for a mill, that you use that villager to build the house, and then instead of building the mill, to use it for building the barracks though. If you opt for the militia, you obviously go for feudal age a bit later. Depending on your map, you can decide to go either fast into castle age, which if you have the opportunity to do so, you should go for, because as we pointed out, that is where the Britons really shine, or to go for feudal age archers if you need to be able to defend a bit against incoming enemy feudal aggression. If you don't go for the militia, you probably want to go for 22 pop feudal age with the classic archer build order. Through feudal age, and also when aging up later to castle age, you want your ranges to constantly produce. What else do you have them for? Set your select all ranges hotkey and train to constantly produce archers. Even on a 1300 level, many games are decided by the fact which player can keep constant production up, not so much by resources, but by actually simply clicking. I don't know, from my personal experience, how many games I simply lost where I thought if you would have simply constantly produced, you would have had at least a much better chance of actually winning that particular game. If you expect an enemy scout rush, go for some spears, if the enemy brings a lot of skirmishers, adapt either with your own skirms or opt for the very expensive option to go additional scouts. Your choice, both can be viable. But whatever you do, don't lose your archer numbers. You're going to need them. It is one of the most deciding things for Britons to not lose their archer numbers and to get their archer death ball rolling. As soon as you're up to castle age, the following triers should nearly always be researched: crossbow upgrade, botgun arrow and bowsaw. Learn it by heart, put your hotkeys in a way that makes it easily accessible. I have the hotkeys for the buildings easily accessible. I usually don't opt to have hotkeys for the technologies because it is even faster sometimes to just know where the icon is and to then simply click it. Whenever you have the wood for it, you should go for the free TCs to be put down. With the TCs being that cheap, it is barely ever worth it to go for the 1 TC aggression with Britons in Castle Age. With Wheelbarrow, you should have around about 17 farms to have enough food for the pure villager production. With 18 to 20 you can sneak in the occasional upgrade that you need. Experiment with the balance of eco here a little bit. With the crossbows being produced faster, you also want to add some more on gold, up to 11 probably. Your main economy after the food should always go for wood and gold. That also means that the TC placements should be at least 1 on a good wood line and 1 to secure a gold pile. Consider your TC always as a securing element that secures resources that were not so safe until then. Build them accordingly. Also, when your wood and gold economy is growing up, you probably want to put in maybe a siege workshop or additional archery range productions in there so that your production keeps up with your growing economy. From here on, the game opens up a lot, and it is not productive to lay out all the possible branches and discuss them in detail. It would be simply boring and exhausting. The last thing I'm going to point out here is because of that the usual ideal late game army compositions of Britons and what you should roundabout aim for in the Imperial Age. Obviously, a part of the upgrades, you want an army that consists of Arbalests or Longbows, Trebuchets, and a supportive unit or meat shield according to what you face in that very situation. Mostly those are either halberdiers or light cavalry, but multi-unit choices in the next chapter. I found very effective and also hard to play against the British castle aggression, where they use that castle as a starting platform to slowly but inevitably push you to death. It is very effective, as it is hard to win a trap war versus Britons, and they outrange nearly everything that you have. As long as you can fight in one place with the British Archer Death Ball, you're going to have the best chances. Economy wise, you want to go for around about 120 vils in the Imperial Age. Those are the main hints for the general walkthrough, the ages with Britons. In the next and nearly last chapter, we're going to discuss how to deal with certain single unit types and unit combinations at best. While I talk about unit compositions, here's also a little test in a scenario that my dear friend Hooker put together for us and for the strategy guide. And there you can also see we put unit compositions against each other that had the same amount of resources, and you can judge for yourself while I'm talking about unit compositions how they fare against each other. Against archers you barely should ever have problems, as you simply have the better archers. They're basically 2 civilizations, maybe 3 where archers could be a problem, Vietnamese with the Ratin archers and Ethiopians with the faster firing archers, and maybe Mayans if they should decide for the bloomed archer. Despite of that, you never should have problems. In their cases, either your own skirmishers or your siege can be options to deal with them. The skirmishers is the core component to nearly every game playing against Britons. Luckily, you have a variety of options to deal with them. You have fully upgraded champions, you have a decent light cav, and you got onagers, and finally, not to forget, you have your own skirmishers with the additional range from the yeoman upgrade. Cavalry archers and hand cannoneers should get counted by your skirms of ARPs as well. I definitely recommend the skirmishers, especially in the feudal age, where you even don't have to tech into anything else to simply produce them. Against barracks units, you should stick to your archers for the most part, despite of some guys with high pierce armor like eagles and huskars and champ culls. Against cavalry, you obviously use halberdiers. Against special cavalry like cataphracts, you have your arbalests. Against siege units, it can become a bit tricky at times. Whoever followed any pro streamer will have heard the phrase that the siege ram is the eternal enemy of the Britons. And there's good truth in that. Britons have a rough time dealing with a well-coordinated ram train. The best shots here as well are champions, light cav and halberdier, or the often forgotten onagers. Interesting can be a mixture of light cav and onagers to deal with the ram train, in addition to the archer core of your army. The light cav with its bigger model delays the incoming rams better than champs or halberdiers and thus gives you more time. The onagers soften the ram meat before that and can also deal with archers or skirms behind the rams or with infantry hidden in the rams. The problem with onagers is of course that you have to micro them quite a bit. The siege onager can be dealt with the long-ranging archers usually. Fully upgraded Arbalests have 11 range, siege onagers with siege engineers have 9, longbows have 12 range fully upgraded. Masked scorpions can be tricky, especially by the Khmer. They also have just 9 range fully upgraded, but they are many and they are powerful. Here the Briton onager might be the best solution in combination with the long-ranging archers. With the bombard cannons, it's usually an expensive idea to throw them against Britons, though sometimes you need them versus their traps. It's usually good to snipe them with the archers, as the longbows have only 1 range less and the Arbalest 2 range less than the bombard cannons. Monks can be dealt with by archers as well. A quick sentence to the question whether you should go Arbalests or longbows. The longbows in our tests did a little bit better than the Arbalests, which is probably due to the range. On the other side, longbows have the disadvantage to be mostly effective in big numbers due to their lacking accuracy, and on the other side, they are only produced from casters. So, if you should be in the position to have a lot of casters and a lot of map control, probably the longbow is the better post-imperial unit. If you shouldn't have, stick to the Arbalest, it's safer. One of the toughest opponents for Britons is probably the elite Eager Warrior with its mobility and resistance to pierce damage. I highly recommend walling your core economy, preferably with stone walls, and keep those walls intact. Despite of that, the champions of your own will probably be the best call for you. If you are able to throw in some raiding light cav to return the favor, you might be able to weather the storm sufficiently. Focus on the goals on the map with your raids. Against Huskarls on the other hand, I recommend to add onagers. Huskarls lack the mobility of the eagles. Keep your walls up at home so that you cannot be raided as much, but you don't want to get into a full champion battle with the Goth. That is why a combination of champions with onagers is probably recommended. Archers are always still a certain core of your army. Light cav here is of course also an option. When it comes to champ cars, the same applies. Something else is the combination of Retin archers with elephants or elephant archers of the Indians. Their onagers against the Retin archers in skirms are a must. Halberdiers can be required as meat shield. Let's come to the last chapter then, how to deal with the Britons. Well, we can keep it short here, as it is everything that I've mentioned above that you shouldn't do, that you need to achieve as their enemy. Reduce their archer numbers preferably in feudal age, have preferably skirms and siege rams in your army, and defend your siege rams with some kind of suited infantry. Against British light cav use halberdiers, and against the infantry probably use your own or flank them with heavy cavalry of yours. One of the best ideas is to use your mobility and make the field of battle wide and open so that you can always raid the Briton economy while you avoid the archer death ball. So an idea would be, for example, to post an outpost kind of siege workshop that just produces the occasional ram to punch through the Briton walls. Good counter civilizations are the Vikings, the Mesocivs, Goths, Vietnamese and maybe also Malians. Good partners for the Britons are for example the Magyars, as they are dealing great with enemy siege and have the cavalry to deal with the infantry of the enemy pretty good. The team bonuses are also working well together. Good mutual benefits are also common in alliances with Saracens or any other civilization that wants to use the archery range. So to throw in a little bonus here, with friendly permission of TheViper himself, I will use some footage of TheViper versus Leary, which recently happened in a tournament, to show you how to actually approach a battle against the Britons. What you can see, for example, here is that his army is trying to go around the flanks. The occasional ram that I mentioned is trying to make a hole so that the raidings can happen. The Brits are going through one point of aggression. As I mentioned earlier, this is exactly what they want to do. So the army compositions are paladins and skirmishers for the Viper, and the Arbalest and halberdier with some traps for the Briton player Leary here. Very classic approach, which is exactly why I show you this footage. We will witness 2 battles, and in the first one the Viper will have, in my personal opinion, the wrong approach, and in the second battle he will have the right approach, and I will show you why. So what you can see here is that Leary is moving back with his archers constantly. They help deal with the few paladins, and Viper's coming just from the front. He is just coming from one side, and Leary can kite back for ages, send the halberdiers constantly in front, and the paladins can never reach the Arbalest core, which they want to reach to really beat the Briton army. So this is exactly how you should not do it. You should never heads up fight the Briton death ball. It's just a recipe for disaster. In the second approach, Viper takes a different route of action. The skirmishers are on the one side, and if you take a close look at the minimap, he is starting to move around his main ball of paladin. So on the one side all the skirmishers, and the paladins will come from mostly the backside, and some as well from the front. With that, the archers cannot escape. And now he even splits it up to have a freeway attack. 2 sides of the wood, and as well with the skirmishers behind. So now let's see how this battle is going. Voila, the Arbalests were trapped. They couldn't escape, they couldn't kite back. The Briton death ball is dead, and the moment the Briton death ball is dead is basically where the Brit is dead. So that is how you approach against the Briton, and from that you can also determine how you want to approach as Briton. I would say, if Leary would have walled his sides, maybe gated his sides with some villagers around him, he could have stood a much better chance of actually winning this fight. So, that was it with my first strategy guide attempt ever. In the end, I hope to see you dropping by in the stream from time to time every Tuesday and Thursday, 18th Central European Time, which is 17 GMT in winter, 16 GMT in summer. Any comment on what I have missed or what you would like to see tackled in future guides, let me know in the comments. Stream link is in the chat. Good luck out there on the battlefield. See you later, and